Today I have a story for you that I can't shake off, and trust me, it's a little awkward but definitely unforgettable. Picture this. You're hanging out with your best friend, just kicking back like you always do. Everything feels normal until one offhand comment comes out, and suddenly everything shifts. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And the weirdest part, it wasn't just the reaction I got from my friend. It was from his mom. Now, I'm not saying it was a full-blown moment of realization, but let's just say things changed after that. You won't believe how one small comment set the stage for something that neither of us saw coming. Stay with me and let me take you through it. It was one of those lazy Saturday afternoons when everything felt slow. I was at home scrolling through my phone when I noticed a missed call from Jake. He had left his headphones at my place the night before after our hangout, and apparently he needed them back. No big deal, I thought. I grabbed them from the table and texted him that I was heading over to drop them off. Jake's house wasn't far, just a short drive across town. I knew his mom, Sarah, was always around, but she usually stayed in her room or kept to herself. I never really thought about her much other than the fact that she was a good-looking woman for her age. I mean, she was in her early 40s, but she didn't look much older than that. Still, she was just Jake's mom to me, nothing more. When I knocked on the door, I wasn't expecting her to open it, but she did. Wearing nothing but a towel, her hair damp from the shower. She looked surprised, but not embarrassed. I didn't know where to look. My eyes quickly darted away from her, but I could feel the awkwardness hanging in the air. "Hey, Sam," she said, smiling. "Jake's out for a while." "What brings you here?" I stammered for a second before holding up the headphones. "I just came to drop these off. Didn't realize you'd be busy." Sarah laughed softly, brushing a strand of wet hair behind her ear. "Oh, I'm not busy. Just got out of the shower. Want to come in for a bit?" I hesitated, unsure whether I should, but I stepped inside anyway. I mean, it wasn't like she was a stranger. It's just, well, it felt different. I'd always seen her as this poised, motherly figure, never as someone I might feel weirdly attracted to. We sat down in the living room and she offered me a drink. The conversation started off casual, but as we talked more, I realized she was opening up in ways I hadn't expected. We talked about life, about how she was feeling about the changes happening around her, and about how she sometimes felt isolated even though she was surrounded by people. For a moment, it felt like we weren't talking about her being Jake's mom at all. It was just her and me having a real conversation. I could tell she was genuinely interested in what I had to say. And in that moment, I started seeing her in a different light. There was something more to her than just the woman who raised Jake. She smiled again, a soft, almost secretive smile. "You've grown up so much, Sam," she said. "It's kind of hard to believe. I still remember when you were just a little kid running around with Jake." I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded. There was something in the air between us now. Something unspoken but palpable. I could feel it, the connection, the subtle tension, but I wasn't sure what it meant. All I knew was that I didn't want to leave yet. She stood up, walking over to the kitchen, and I followed. As she passed by, I caught the faintest scent of her perfume mixed with the clean, fresh smell of her shower. For a brief moment, it felt like she was more than just Jake's mom. She was a woman, a person with her own thoughts, her own desires. "Thanks for coming by," she said, turning toward me. "I needed someone to talk to." I smiled, feeling a bit of warmth spreading through me. "Anytime." But as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure where it was headed. The next time I saw Sarah, it wasn't planned. I was at the grocery store picking up a few things for dinner when I bumped into her in the aisle. She was looking at a jar of marinara sauce. Her brow furrowed in concentration, and for a moment I wondered why I hadn't noticed before how effortlessly beautiful she was. It wasn't just her looks. It was the way she carried herself, like she knew something the rest of us didn't. I hadn't expected to see her here, and honestly I wasn't sure how to act. We hadn't really talked since that awkward morning when I dropped off the headphones, but there was something about that conversation that lingered with me. Something about the way she had looked at me, or the way she'd smiled. Something was different, but at the time I just shrugged it off as a fluke. "Sam," she called, noticing me. Her voice had a warm, easygoing quality to it, the kind that made you feel instantly comfortable. I smiled, trying to act normal. "Hey, Sarah, didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, just grabbing a few things for dinner," she said, gesturing to her cart. "You need anything?" It was a simple question, but it led to a conversation that lasted far longer than I expected. We talked about food, about the weather, about random small talk, but there was an underlying tension between us that I couldn't shake. It was subtle. Just a glance here, a small smile there, but it was there. "Are you doing anything tonight?" she asked suddenly, almost as if she was testing me. I wasn't sure how to answer. Not really. Just hanging out at home. "Well, Jake's out with some friends tonight. I was thinking of making dinner. You should come by. It'd be nice to have someone to talk to." The invitation caught me off guard. My first instinct was to decline. After all, what did I really have in common with her outside of Jake? But there's something in her voice that made it hard to say no. "Yeah, sure," I said before I even had time to reconsider. I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. But as I followed her home later that evening, the thought of spending time alone with Sarah made my heart race in a way I didn't quite understand. When I arrived, I was greeted with the familiar warmth of her house. The smell of fresh food was in the air, and it felt comfortable. Too comfortable. Sarah was already in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her. It was hard to reconcile this woman in front of me with the woman I'd known as Jake's mom. There was something different about her now. Something real. "Take a seat," she called over her shoulder. "Dinner's almost ready." I sat at the kitchen table, trying not to make it obvious that I was nervous. She seemed so casual, so at ease, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things were shifting between us. It wasn't just the way she moved or the way she smiled. It was how she made me feel, more than just a friend's mom. We ate, and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about life, about how things weren't always as simple as they seemed. She told me about how she missed the excitement of her younger years, about how life with Jake had become a routine. There was an honesty in her voice that I hadn't expected. She was tired of pretending everything was okay. I listened, nodding, not quite sure how to respond. But as she talked, I couldn't help but notice how attractive she was. How her eyes seemed to shine when she was passionate about something. She wasn't just Jake's mom. She was a woman with her own thoughts, her own life. And for the first time, I was seeing her as just that. "Thanks for this," I said after dinner, standing up to clear the table. Sarah smiled at me, and I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. "I'm glad you came by. It's been a while since I had a real conversation with someone." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. There was an unspoken understanding between us now, something that didn't need words. As I left, she gave me a hug, her hand lingering on my back for a moment longer than necessary. It was casual, friendly, but something about it felt different. "Take care, Sam," she said quietly. I walked back to my car, my head spinning. The simple act of spending time with her had left me unsettled, yet strangely drawn to her. The next few days felt strange. I couldn't stop thinking about the night at Sarah's house. It was so casual, so simple, and yet something about it had thrown me off. It wasn't that she did anything overtly inappropriate, but the way she looked at me, the way she listened, it made me feel like we were connecting on a different level. I'd spent plenty of time at Jake's house before, but this time it was different, and I hated myself for thinking about it so much. I tried to push it out of my mind. Jake called me up a couple of days later, asking if I wanted to go grab some drinks. I agreed, figuring it'd be a good way to get my mind off of things. But as soon as I got to the bar, I saw Sarah sitting at the counter with her friends. She waved at me, and I couldn't help but wave back. Her smile was as effortless as ever, but there was a little more warmth in it than usual, something that made me feel uneasy. "Hey, Sam," she greeted me when I walked up. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight." I shrugged, trying to act casual. "Just here to hang out with Jake. Didn't know you were coming." "Yeah, I thought I'd meet up with some old friends. It's been a while since I had a night out," she replied, her eyes lingering on me a little longer than necessary. I couldn't ignore the tension. It was like a quiet undercurrent running between us, always there, but never fully acknowledged. I should have known better. I should have excused myself and left, but I didn't. Instead, I found myself sitting at the bar chatting with her, laughing at her jokes and pretending like nothing was out of the ordinary. Tom eventually joined us and we all started talking about random stuff, work, college things we used to do when we were younger. The conversation was light, but I could feel my attention drifting. Every time Sarah laughed, every time she glanced at me, I felt like there was something more between us. It was like a secret that neither of us was brave enough to voice aloud. At one point, Jake stepped away to grab a drink, leaving me alone with Sarah. I didn't mean to, but I asked, "So how have you really been, Sarah?" She paused, her smile faltering for just a second before she answered, "I'm fine, just a little lonely, I guess." The admission caught me off guard for a moment. She seemed vulnerable, a side of her I hadn't seen before. It was almost like I was talking to someone completely different, someone who wasn't just Jake's mom. "I get that," I replied. "It can be tough sometimes." She nodded, her voice soft. She stared at me for a while like she was reading me, searching for something. Then, just as Jake came back, we both quickly tried to cover up whatever had just passed between us. But I couldn't shake that feeling. I could tell she knew. And I knew she knew. Later that night, as I was heading out, Jake walked me to the door. "You're coming by next week, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He leaned against the frame. "You and my mom, you get along weirdly well." My stomach tightened. I play dumb. "She's cool. That's all." Jake narrowed his eyes for half a second, then shrugged. "Whatever. Just don't let her feed you too much. I swear she cooks more when she likes someone." I laughed, forced and awkward noted, but inside I was spiraling. As I stepped outside, I glanced back once and saw Sarah watching us from the hallway. Not smiling this time, just watching. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment nothing else mattered. We were playing with fire. We both knew it, but it didn't feel wrong. It felt like we were finally alive. It's been 4 weeks since that night on the couch. Since our first kiss, since the line that wasn't supposed to be crossed got left far behind us. And no, it didn't turn into chaos. There was no big blow-up, no betrayal, no screaming matches. Instead, it became something quiet, something just ours. Jake still doesn't know. At least not officially. He suspects I can tell. He's not stupid, but he doesn't have proof. And we've been careful. No texts, no calls, no lingering looks when he's around. When I'm over, it's just like before, friends hanging out, gaming, eating too much, talking trash. And when Jake leaves the room or steps outside to take a call, Sarah and I steal a glance. Just one. That says everything. But when he's not home, that's when we're us. The first time we spent the night together, it wasn't planned. I came by when Jake was out late. We sat in the living room just talking like always. She had her hair down for once, wearing a long cardigan and no shoes. Something about the way she looked that night, unfiltered, quiet, real, made it impossible to hold back. I kissed her. She kissed me back and she didn't let me leave. The next morning I woke up before her. I sat there for a long time just watching her sleep. I never felt anything like it. Not obsession, not lust, something more honest, something peaceful. We didn't talk about what it was. We didn't label it. But after that it became our rhythm. We saw each other once or twice a week. Never too often, always with caution, always on her terms, but never with hesitation. She told me once, "This might not last, but while it does, I want it to be real." And it was. One evening we were sitting on the back patio sharing a glass of wine. She had her legs tucked under her, wrapped in a blanket, her head leaning lightly against my shoulder. "This feels dangerous," she said. I smiled. "Because it is." She turned her head slightly. "Do you regret it?" "No." I answered immediately. "Not even close." She paused for a moment. "What happens if he finds out I didn't have an answer?" I didn't pretend to, but I looked her in the eyes and said, "We'll deal with it together." That seemed to be enough. There was something strange about those weeks. We weren't trying to build a future, but it still felt like one. It was like we had this small invisible room where time stopped, where it didn't matter that she was 43 and I was 25, or that she was my friend's mom. In that space, we were just two people who found something they didn't expect, and we held on to it like it might disappear at any moment. Then came a close call. One Saturday, I came over early. Jake had said he'd be out all day, but his plans changed. He came home early, unexpectedly. I was still there. Sarah handled it like a pro. Calm, casual. She handed me a drink in the kitchen like nothing was unusual and said, "You boys hungry?" But the tension was thick. Jake looked at both of us differently that day, quieter, more alert. He didn't say anything, but I could feel the questions in his head. That night, I texted Sarah, "I think he knows." She replied, "He suspects, but he won't ask. Not unless he's sure." "Should we stop?" I wrote, "Do you want to?" I didn't reply right away. Then finally I typed, "Not even a little." She didn't respond for a while. Then just one message came, "Come over tomorrow." So I did, and we kept going. We became experts at discretion. Sometimes I'd visit under other excuses, returning something Jake lent me, dropping off notes, helping her fix her laptop, but every time it was more than that. We had dinners, we watched movies, we talked about our days, we laughed, we touched, and sometimes we just sat in silence, content to be next to each other without saying a word. I told her once, "I don't know where this ends." She nodded and said, "Not everything needs an ending." But the truth is, we found one anyway. A soft, quiet ending. Not to us, but to the worry. People started to suspect. Her neighbor saw me leaving once and raised an eyebrow. Jake mentioned something about me being around more than usual. Even one of her co-workers asked me, "You still hanging out with that kid, or are you there for his mom?" I just laughed it off. No one ever said it directly. No one confronted us, but some people knew and some just chose not to ask. Now, a few months later, we're still seeing each other. Still us. Still secret mostly, but not afraid anymore. Jake has moved out, got his own apartment with a couple of guys from school. We still hang sometimes, but not like before. Life has shifted, and Sarah is still in that house, still glowing without trying, still cooking too much lasagna, still looking at me like I'm more than just her son's friend. Sometimes I stay the night. Sometimes we take day trips out of town, somewhere no one would know us. We walk side by side like any couple would, like nothing about us is unusual. And in those moments I realize something. We didn't break any rules. We just wrote new ones. She once told me, "This feels too good to be real." I told her that's what makes it real. We're not a fairy tale. We're not a scandal. We're just two people who found peace where no one expected it. And if that peace is a secret, then it's the best one I've ever kept. And just like that, everything changed. What started as a casual visit to a friend's house turned into an unexpected turning point. The tension in the air after that comment was thick, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it a compliment? Was it awkward? Was there something more I hadn't realized until now? The line between respect and attraction can sometimes be blurry, and I'm sure you felt it too. Is it ever okay to feel that way about someone who's been a mother figure in your life? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But here's the thing, sometimes these moments, no matter how uncomfortable, lead to surprising revelations. And no matter how much we try to avoid them, they have a way of showing us what's really on our minds. So what happens when you find yourself crossing a line you didn't even know was there? Is it the beginning of something deeper, or just an innocent mistake? If you're curious about what happens next and want more crazy, unexpected stories like this, don't forget to hit that follow button. Your support will motivate me to bring you more amazing videos, or just press 1 if you're all in for the ride.